The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon as I adjusted my off-the-rack suit from JCPenney, feeling distinctly out of place among the designer-clad guests at the Plaza Hotel. Richard, my older brother, had spared no expense for his wedding to Catherine Windsor, daughter of banking royalty. The chandelier alone probably cost more than my first startup's entire seed funding. Jesus Christ, Michael, Richard hissed as I approached the champagne fountain. Couldn't you at least buy a decent suit for my wedding? That thing looks like it came from a clearance rack. It had, actually. The same clearance rack where I'd been buying my suits for the past 5 years while quietly building quantum financial technologies. But Richard didn't need to know that his embarrassment of a brother now controlled one of the largest financial technology companies in the world. Sorry, Rich, I mumbled, playing my usual role of the family disappointment. Been a tough year. He snorted, adjusting his bespoke Tom Ford tuxedo. It's been a tough decade, little brother. Maybe if you'd stayed at Morgan Stanley instead of chasing your tech dreams. Catherine floated over in a cloud of white Vera Wang, her family's old money evident in every perfectly curated detail. Darling, Daddy wants to discuss the board position. She barely glanced at me. Oh, hello, Michael. The subtle disdain in her voice was familiar. The Windsors were banking aristocracy. Her father, Charles Windsor, was chairman of First Atlantic Bank, where Richard had miraculously risen to senior vice president despite mediocre performance. Family connections had their privileges. Congratulations, I offered, but they were already gliding away toward Mr. Windsor and his circle of banking executives. I caught fragments of their conversation, merger talks, board politics, the usual concerns of people who thought they controlled the financial world. If they only knew. My phone buzzed. Acquisition approval confirmed. Federal Reserve signs off. Timeline proceeding as planned. I smiled, remembering Richard's mockery when I'd left Morgan Stanley to start my fintech company. Banking is about relationships, not computers, he'd lectured. You'll crawl back within a year. Instead, I'd spent 5 years developing quantum computing algorithms that could process financial transactions 1,000,000 times faster than traditional systems. While Richard climbed the corporate ladder through family connections, I'd built a technology that was about to reshape the entire banking industry. Starting with First Atlantic Bank. Still checking job listings? Richard's voice dripped with condescension as he returned. I might have an analyst position opening up. Entry-level, of course. Before I could respond, James Chin, First Atlantic ZO, approached with an elderly gentleman I recognized as Arthur Montgomery, the bank's longest-serving board member. Richard, my boy, Montgomery boomed. Quite a celebration. Though troubling times at the bank, I'm afraid. This mysterious company buying up shares. Richard straightened his bow tie. Nothing to worry about, sir. Probably some tech upstart we can easily outmaneuver. They don't understand real banking. I hid my smile behind a champagne flute. Quantum Financial had been quietly acquiring First Atlantic shares through various shell companies for months. The bank's old guard management never saw us coming. Michael, Richard turned to me with fake concern. You should network here. Meet some real bankers. Maybe salvage what's left of your career. The string quartet switched to Mozart as more guests arrived. I recognized most of them, CEOs, board members, financial regulators. All here to celebrate the merger of 2 banking dynasties, unaware that a bigger merger was about to be announced. My phone buzzed again, SEC filing ready. Press release scheduled for 9 p.m. It was 8:55. Thomas Wright, First Atlantic's managing director, hurried through the crowd toward James Chen. His face was ashen as he whispered something urgent. Chen's expression shifted from confusion to shock. What's wrong? Richard asked, noticing the commotion. Something about those share purchases? Quantum Financial, Wright said, his voice shaking. They've acquired controlling interest. The announcement goes live in minutes. Richard laughed. Quantum what? Never heard of them. Nobody has, Chen replied grimly. But they now own 51% of First Atlantic's voting shares. And their CEO is an elegant woman in a crisp suit cut through the crowd, Sarah Martinez, First Atlantic's chief risk officer. Sir, she addressed me directly, ignoring Richard completely. The acquisition paperwork is ready for your final approval. The music screeched to a halt. 300 guests turned to stare. Richard's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "Michael," he whispered. "What is she talking about?" I straightened my clearance rack suit. "Quantum financial technologies. My tech dreams that would never work in real banking. As of 9 o'clock, we own controlling interest in First Atlantic Bank." The chandelier light suddenly felt very bright. Catherine's father had gone pale. Richard's perfect wedding was about to become something else entirely. "That's impossible," he sputtered. "You can't even afford a proper suit." Sarah handed me a tablet displaying real-time market data. "Sir, the press release is ready. And the integration team awaits your instructions for Monday." Richard grabbed my arm. "Monday? What happens Monday?" I gently removed his hand. "Board meeting. New management structure. Quite a few changes coming to First Atlantic." I paused, straightening my target tie. "Though I'm sure there's an entry-level analyst position we can find for you." The string quartet had stopped playing entirely now. 300 of banking's elites stood frozen, watching the family disappointment transform into their new owner. "But..." Richard's voice cracked. "How?" The silence in the plaza's grand ballroom was deafening. Catherine's perfectly planned wedding had just transformed into something entirely different. The moment her new family discovered they were now employees of her brother-in-law's company. Quantum Financial. Charles Windsor finally spoke, his aristocratic composure cracking. "The company that's been revolutionizing banking infrastructure. That's yours. The same one you dismissed as digital nonsense last year," I confirmed, accepting another tablet from Sarah. "When we offered First Atlantic a partnership opportunity." Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. "Partnership? You never said anything about." "Actually, I did," I interrupted, pulling up an email on my phone. "Last Christmas dinner. You said, and I quote, 'Stay in your lane, little brother. Real banking is for real bankers.'" Catherine stepped forward, her Vera Wang train rustling. "But you drive a Hyundai. Live in that awful apartment in Queens." "Strategic choices," Sarah explained, her tone professional but slightly amused. "Mr. Pierce believed keeping a low profile would facilitate our acquisition strategy." The wedding guests had formed a circle around us now, banking royalty watching their world shift beneath crystal chandeliers and gold-leafed ceilings. Phones were being pulled out, stock tickers checked, realities confirmed. 51%, Thomas Wright muttered, staring at his trading screen. "They actually got 51%. 53 actually," I corrected. "The last block of shares cleared an hour ago. Congratulations on your wedding, Rich. Sorry about hijacking the headlines tomorrow." Richard grabbed a fresh champagne glass, drained it. "All those times you asked about the bank's technology upgrades." "Due diligence," I nodded. "Your outdated systems made First Atlantic particularly vulnerable to acquisition. Something I mentioned in that partnership proposal you ignored." Charles Windsor stepped forward, banking aristocracy incarnate. "Now see here, young man. First Atlantic has been independent for 150 years, I finished. And now it's part of Quantum Financial. Your shareholders approved the sale 30 minutes ago. Quite enthusiastically, given our offer price." Catherine's mascara had started to run slightly. "Daddy, do something." "He can't," Sarah interjected, still tapping on her tablet. "The deal is done. Federal Reserve approved, SEC filing public in." She checked her watch. 3 minutes. The string quartet had started playing again, an awkward attempt at normalcy. But the wedding guests weren't dancing. They were frantically checking phones, making calls, watching banking history unfold at what was supposed to be a simple society wedding. "You could have told me," Richard said quietly. "Your own brother. Like you told me about the VP position?" I raised an eyebrow. "The one you gave to Catherine's cousin instead because banking is about relationships?" He flinched. The nepotism that had defined his career was suddenly very visible. "Sir," Sarah approached again. "Monday's transition team needs authorization. And the other board members are requesting an emergency meeting." "Other board members?" Charles Windsor's voice cracked. "What other board members?" I accepted another tablet, signed quickly. "Quantum's board. We're acquiring 3 other banks next week. First Atlantic is just the beginning." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Banking's old guard was witnessing their world transform, orchestrated by the man they dismissed as a tech dreamer in a cheap suit. "You're fired," Richard suddenly blurted. "All your fancy technology can't." "Actually," I cut him off gently, "I believe you'll find it's the other way around. Though we'll find a position for you. Perhaps in our new digital training program. Entry-level, of course." Catherine's father swayed slightly. "The Windsor legacy will be preserved," I assured him. "As part of a larger, more innovative institution. One that understands banking's future isn't about family names or crystal chandeliers." My phone buzzed. The SEC filing was live. Around the ballroom, phones chimed with news alerts. The secret was out. First Atlantic Bank, cornerstone of traditional banking, was now owned by a fintech startup run by the black sheep brother of its newest VP. "The merger announcement," Catherine whispered. "Our wedding was supposed to announce the merger with European Continental." "That deal's off," Sarah confirmed. "Though we've already acquired European Continental. Last month, actually. They just don't know it yet." Richard grabbed my arm again. "This is revenge, isn't it? For all the times we mocked my career, dismissed my ideas, offered me entry-level positions." I straightened my JCPenney suit. "No, Rich. This is business. Something you claimed I'd never understand." The wedding planner approached nervously. "Should we serve dinner?" "By all means," I nodded. "Though I'm afraid some guests may need to step out for emergency board meetings. Banking waits for no wedding." Charles Windsor had found his voice again. "The board will fight this." "The board works for me now," I reminded him. "As does everyone else in this room who works for First Atlantic. Including the groom." The truth of that statement hit Richard like a physical blow. His perfect wedding, meant to cement his rise in banking society, had become the venue for his hostile takeover. "Monday morning," I continued, "Quantum's teams begin modernizing First Atlantic systems. Richard, your department will be first. Consider it a wedding present, a chance to finally learn about real banking." Catherine was crying openly now, her perfect makeup running. "But the announcements, the society pages. We'll have quite a different story," I agreed. "Though your wedding will still make headlines. Just not the ones you planned." The string quartet had given up entirely, packing their instruments. The wedding photographer kept shooting, documenting the exact moment banking royalty realized their kingdom had fallen to a man in an off-the-rack suit. Sarah appeared with more tablets, more updates, more transitions to manage. The future of banking was arriving, dressed in JCPenney and driving a Hyundai. "Sir," she said quietly, "your car is here. The transition team awaits at headquarters." I turned to my brother, standing amid the wreckage of his perfect wedding. "Congratulations, Rich. On your marriage and your new position. HR will send details about the digital training program." "But," he stuttered, "my office, my title, will need to be earned," I finished. "Based on merit, not marriage. Welcome to real banking, big brother." As I walked out of the plaza, past the designer suits and society dresses, my phone buzzed one last time. European Continental Board requesting emergency meeting. Shall we announce that acquisition too? I smiled, thinking of Richard's face when he realized Monday's training program would be teaching him how his little brother had revolutionized global banking. "No," I typed back. "Let them enjoy their weekend. Some surprises are better served cold." After all, revenge isn't about fancy suits or corner offices. Sometimes it's about showing up to your brother's wedding in JCPenney, then buying his bank before the cake is cut. Monday morning arrived with the subtle grace of a nuclear explosion. First Atlantic's marble lobby had transformed overnight, Quantum Financial's logo now dominated the entrance, and teams of tech specialists streamed through security, carrying equipment that would drag the century-old bank into the digital age. Richard stood in his soon-to-be former office, watching movers pack up his mahogany furniture. His wedding photos hadn't even been developed yet, but his professional world had already crumbled. "Your new workspace is on floor 3, Sarah informed him, barely glancing up from her tablet. "Cubicle 347B. The digital training program starts at 9. "Cubicle." His voice cracked. "But I'm senior vice president." "We're senior vice president," I corrected, entering the office. My JCPenney suit had been joined by a digital tablet and an ID badge that simply read, "See. Today your trainee analyst Pierce," along with several other former executives who need to learn modern banking. The morning sun gleamed off the quantum computing servers being installed in what used to be the executive dining room. First Atlantic's traditional banking infrastructure was being dismantled, piece by gold-plated piece. Charles Windsor appeared in the doorway, his usual aristocratic bearing somewhat diminished. "This is madness. You can't just digitize everything." "Actually, I pulled up real-time trading data on the wall screen. We already have. Quantum's AI system is now handling all of First Atlantic's transactions. Processing speed is up 2,000%. Error rate down to 0.0001%. Catherine stormed in, still in her honeymoon clothes. They'd cancelled their trip to Monaco for this crisis. "You've ruined everything. The Windsor banking legacy will be preserved in the corporate museum we're building," I assured her. "Along with all these lovely mahogany desks and oil paintings of former chairmen." The morning light caught my simple Timex watch, the same one Richard had mocked at countless family gatherings. "Nice digital watch," he'd sneered. "Real bankers wear Rolex." Now that Timex was worth more than his entire wardrobe. "Sir," Sarah interrupted, "the European Continental announcement is ready. And the integration teams report quantum computing infrastructure installation is ahead of schedule." Richard's face paled further. "European Continental too? But they're the largest bank in." "We're the largest bank in Europe," I corrected. "Now they're part of Quantum Financial, along with their rather outdated trading systems." Charles Windsor sank into a chair, one of the few pieces of furniture not yet removed. "The other board members are resigning." "As expected," I nodded. "Change is difficult, especially for those who've confused tradition with competence." Catherine's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she clutched her designer handbag. "What about our positions? Our status?" "Status must be earned," I replied, remembering all the times they'd lorded their banking pedigree over my tech background. "Though I hear the digital training program has excellent advancement opportunities for those willing to learn." The morning staff meeting would start soon. First Atlantic's first as part of Quantum Financial. Hundreds of bankers would discover their new reality, adapt to the digital age or find another industry. "You planned this," Richard accused, watching his nameplate being removed from the door. "All those years playing the poor relation while building the future of banking," I agreed. "Though you were too busy measuring suit labels to notice." Sarah appeared with more updates. The quantum computing installation was proceeding faster than expected. By noon, First Atlantic's centuries-old banking systems would be obsolete. "Your new employee orientation starts in 10 minutes, she informed Richard and Catherine. "Don't be late, punctuality counts toward your performance metrics." They stared at me, these pillars of traditional banking now reduced to entry-level trainees. Their perfect world of corner offices and family connections had been disrupted by quantum computers and artificial intelligence. "The banking industry is evolving," I told them, not unkindly. "You can evolve with it or become corporate history. Your choice." As they shuffled out, still shell-shocked, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The same off-the-rack suit, the same Timex watch, the same unassuming appearance that had let me build an empire while they weren't looking. "Sir," Sarah reported, "European Continental CO is on line 1. Something about impossible trading patterns in their system." I smiled, thinking of the quantum algorithms already transforming their operations. "Tell him I'll call back. I have a staff meeting to attend." The former executive boardroom had been converted to a digital command center, screens displaying real-time data from Quantum's global operations. Banking's future wasn't about mahogany and marble. It was about milliseconds and megabytes. As I took my place at the head of the table, I caught sight of Richard and Catherine in their new cubicles, awkwardly attempting to log into their training computers. Their wedding portrait sat incongruously beside standard-issue monitors, a reminder that sometimes the biggest disruptions come from the most unexpected sources. "Welcome to modern banking," I announced to the assembled staff. "Where success isn't inherited, it's innovated. After all, revenge might be best served cold, but progress is best served with a side of quantum computing and a garnish of humility." especially when it's served in an off-the-rack suit at your brother's wedding. The future of finance had arrived. And it didn't care about designer labels or family trees. It only cared about who was ready to evolve.